When we say being connected to nature, we're never not connected to nature. But the beauty of just taking the time out and spending time with the elements, however that looks, whether it's sun gazing, whether it's being in nature hiking, whether it's sitting in streams and observing the vortexes or taking minerals. The beautiful thing with that is we get to remember the truth of who we are, which is, again, it's the removal of separation. So we are actually connected to everything. Once we actually have that experientially inside of us, we can go out and do whatever we like without any judgment around it. It doesn't matter whether we're on our devices, 16, 18 hours, 20 hours a day. Sometimes Brad and I are at the moment because, we're running a business that's got a lot of growth, and that's just the demand that it takes. But we have that foundation, those foundational pillars where we've scratched the surface of that truth of who we are. So from that space, again, we can go out into the world and enjoy it from a place of gratitude and non-attachment. Whereas, if we were to lose all of that tomorrow, it doesn't bother us because we're just as happy in nature. We're just as happy having nothing. We're just as happy with the simple things, potentially even more happy with the simple things. Like within those simplicities, the magic of life is really remembered. And the minerals and the mana, and we can go into that more in a moment, but one of the things we're intending to do with that anyway is bring nature back into people's homes, because we understand there's a lot of people that just don't have the opportunity to get into nature. They're living in the cities, they're living in an apartment. So we've actually taken the best products produced by nature, produced by the sun, produced by the highest resolution waters on the planet, and put them into an easy to use single dose sachet that is like nature's most concentrated, richest micronutrients, where they can just take that daily. So it's our little way of bringing nature back into people, bringing the body up to balance. So it's getting those nutrients that aren't in our tomatoes or aren't in our food or aren't in our soils. I think the US Department of Agriculture has a study that shows there's 80% less minerals, fulvic acid, humic acid, and the other micronutrients in our food and soils now than there was 100 years ago. So we're filling that gap with mana. So all of the micronutrients that science recognizes we require for our bodies, not to just function correctly, but to also thrive, we're squeezing into each of those little packets that, again, you can just have in your kitchen, have in your pocket, take one a day, and you're good to go. You've actually got access to all of those nutrients again. So that's one of the reasons why we're super passionate about it. And then we've also got a couple of other products coming which kind of take that to a whole nother level as well.
Yeah, it's an incredible question, but it's interesting you talk about Italy, right? It's when I've traveled to Italy a few times in the last 10 years, and you eat the tomatoes. I had a visceral feeling of eating a tomato. It is so different because we spend a lot of time in the US and Canada and obviously Australia, and there is a massive difference in the actual taste, right? It's like, and there's a fertility in that expression of that plant on that fruit, right? And it's almost when you eat the pasta or eat the pizzas when you're in Italy, it's totally different to it is here in Australia or the US or the US. Like, I don't get as bloated, so it's the flour. So it's sort of, the question is why would that potentially be? And it's like what David said about the quality of soil today is just not there. And we can go into great detail why that is, and we could probably attach a few things from pesticides, fertilizers, and all that sort of stuff. So the soil's dead. It for whatever reason, it's dead it doesn't have a resonance to it. Let's use that word, resonance. So the body operates the same way. The body's either in resonance or dissonance. And Dr. Beff talks about, which you've had on the show before as well. It's sort of like, so if everything's like at a dissonance, it's out of resonance, and the soil's out of resonance and the human vessel's out of resonance, it's sort of like, good luck trying to have an incredible human experience when that electrical system is not turned on. And that's what the minerals do, right? So if we're saying for the first point that there's none of that in the soil anymore, and we're saying like Italy's an incredible place, I reckon if you went and tested the soil in most parts of Italy, because they're not doing everything at a grand scale that they are in the US. US is the monocrops everywhere and stuff like that. So
a lot of glyphosate.
Yeah, glyphosate's huge, which creates enormous disruption and dissonance in the body and the stomach and the gut biome and stuff like that as well. So it's almost like when you're like in Italy, I'd love to test the soil in Italy. It'll be a lot better than what it is in the US and Australia as well. And that's what, like to David's point, what's in that sachet, it's like there's so much resonance inside of that sachet that your body doesn't actually get today. And when you start taking it, that body electric stuff, it just turns on straight away. So the body upregulates that electrical system. And Dr. Beff is incredible, cell health and how the body works from an ATP and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's almost like I look at when we introduce mana into the body, it's like a battery system. The battery system actually is empty, and then it starts to get turned on. And to put it like a rudimentary term, like you get that negative charge. The negative charge then actually allows the cell receptor to then open up the cell and then go into the DNA. And there's obviously a lot more from a science and biological sense that actually happens with that. But it's almost like the body electric then turns on. So then we've got access to, a lot of other things within inside of the body that actually gets turned on. So that's what amazes me, because we get so many people with totally different, Dave and I were talking about this yesterday, totally different responses to what happens within their side, like, from a fertility point of view, from a cognitive point of view. It's basically the body is coming back to resonance and the electrical system is starting to get turned on. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, when you're talking about Italy, it's all that tomato is... It's actually a visual feeling for me because I've actually experienced the difference.